हमारी स्पिरिट से बढ़कर के दुनिया में कोई फोर्स नहीं होता। उत्साह परम बलम।
Prarambh, Utsaha Param Balam. Taking inspiration from Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision. Let us ignite the next major movement for startups. Let's celebrate the ideas and the excitement. Let's exchange awareness and knowledge. Let's expand the horizons. Let's establish accolades. Let's embrace. Let us initiate. Prarambh, Utsaha, Parambalam. Startup India International Summit.
I guess that's our cue to get started. Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to have you all amongst us. And we're looking forward to listening to your perspectives on a very interesting topic, social entrepreneurship and leveraging the power of social innovation. You know, social innovation are really solutions to address the challenges of society and environment by deploying business-like approaches. So, startups, you see, have one, traditional startups have just one goal, bottom line revenue, whereas the startups with social mission have what they call double bottom line, not just the revenue, but impact on the society. So innovative business models that combine profit with social good. That's the theme of this panel discussion, and India has certainly made a lot of progress in this in the last 4 or 5 years. So some of us will share that perspective, but I think in general, you see, entrepreneurs and investors worldwide are now looking to create products and create innovation in socially relevant sectors such as education, healthcare, livelihood training, services, those kind of areas. And in India, particularly, the intersection of the innovation, governance, entrepreneurship has created, you see, a massive sort of transformative impact on the society. And through this panel discussion, hopefully, you see, we'll be able to get perspectives from other countries as well about how other countries are handling this social innovation, and look forward to that perspective. So, before we go further, let me introduce the panel here. We have from India, we have Ms. Neera Nandi. She is founder of Dasra, a very impactful nonprofit. From Bangladesh, we have Ms. Sifat Sarwar. She is co-founder of ShopUp and something to do with financial inclusion. From Bhutan, we have Sanjay Dorji, and he is with Bhutan Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then from Myanmar, we have Dr. Inge Le Khin. She's Deputy General Manager in the Office of Central Transformation Unit, Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry. From Nepal, we have Mr. Vibhushan Bisht. He's CEO of Young Innovations. And from Sri Lanka, we have Mr. Abhay Vikrama, and he founded Lanka Impact Investing Network, like a Shark Tank for social impact. Looking forward to hearing that. And from Thailand, we have Mr. Tira Kanok Kanjanarath. He is founder of Erin Care Company Limited. So welcome you all, and let me invite Ms. Nandi to to share her perspective.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you everyone for taking the time. And I'm actually looking forward to hearing from my own panelists the diversity that's here and the experience from your countries. I think it's a lot for me to think that I can represent India. So I will only speak to the limited experience that I have, which is really founding of Dasra. Dasra, it's a nonprofit. It means enlightened giving, and we've spent the last 21 years in India really trying to raise money from grants and philanthropists and then fund other NGOs. But in that process, we've worked a lot within social innovation, right, and within social enterprises. And I think, Mr. Shukla, you had asked me to speak to something around, is there a difference between social innovation, charity, entrepreneurship? I think the days of charity are gone, right? Where people simply write checks and wherever the money goes, the money goes. I think people, funders, investors are far more engaged in the work. I think where social innovation really has gained ground is really on the poverty reduction side, right? How are we addressing deep issues on development, and a lot more framing around sustainable development goals we find are a good place to begin to anchor the conversation and the work around social innovation. But I must be honest that over the last 20 years, the challenge for us as entrepreneurs is less around the innovation itself, but it's about how do you get this innovation going? How do you begin to build an organization behind that? And that's really where Dasra has focused, is how do you bring both financing as well as capacity building or business support. What we've seen over the years, and especially in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, is as much as the entrepreneurship ecosystem has begun to develop, we've seen that innovators also need support, and that there's actually quite a gap between when investors begin to come in and where some of our entrepreneurs are, and the ecosystem needs support. These two need support to actually close that gap. Sometimes it's language, sometimes it's an understanding of how to build a strategy, sometimes it's a longer term view. But that being said, we've seen the most impact in poverty reduction when you're looking at a social innovation comes from an entrepreneur, frankly, who is from the community themselves. And so you actually see that gap growing as more entrepreneurship grows. I think in India, we've seen quite a lot of investment in the development of the ecosystem. Especially in the last 4 to 5 years, Mr. Shukla, like you were saying. And it's coming from obviously an intent and a cultural mindset. I think we're seeing many more Indians seeing this as an opportunity to engage in innovation, but you're also seeing the ecosystem of investors coming in, right? The whole field of impact investing has really accelerated in the country. And that's really where, you need to look at the business model. So if you see that spectrum, we see you grant money on one side and all the way, let's say, public markets on the other side. Where we're seeing in India and probably in other countries is if we have more access to blended finance, you can have more innovation in the kinds of business models. So I think sometimes there's this debate that sustainability and social innovation is only if you run a for-profit. But over the years, we've seen hybrid models be very successful in India. For example, having both a nonprofit and a for-profit, we've helped support Under the Mango Tree. So this is an interesting business which procures honey. And on one side, they're helping farmers with bee boxes and productivity. On the other side, they're building distribution, for the honey. Another organization we've helped support is in Gujarat, where they're in the salt pan workers. Helping them move from diesel pumps to solar pumps actually helps them really save costs. But there's an investment in actually bringing those solar pumps there and actually helping these families be able to use them. Another organization is SMB Wheels in Varanasi, brought rickshaw pullers all together and aggregated them to provide insurance, uniforms, healthcare. So there's all kinds of innovative models we're beginning to see that address sort of deep issues around poverty, but I do think it's sometimes a trade-off. So in entrepreneurship, right, you can have economic growth, you can have job creation, and I wouldn't say that's social innovation. It's when you add in that element of poverty reduction and that entrepreneurs and innovations prioritize the social impact in a time where it might conflict with profitability. that's really where I would say social innovation needs to go and entrepreneurship needs to go.
Great, great. Very fascinating examples. So, hope you have time, Issy, to delve a little deeper into that. But for the time being, let's just move on to Bangladesh example. Ms. Sarwar, you are on mute.
It's the international quote of the year, isn't it?
It indeed is.
Thank you for having me here. And first of all, I would like to introduce my country. Bangladesh is a country with 160 million people. In a decade, we will have around 200 million people. And it's a country that's at a very exciting stage in the sense that our GDP is growing. We're probably the fastest growing nation in South Asia. So the thing that's happened in India over the last 4 or 5 years, as you mentioned, that there's been a lot of investment in the ecosystem and things, there are stages where you suddenly think things are, you suddenly see that things are moving faster. I think we are at that stage. So in that case, I'm very, very lucky to have been born in this country at this particular time. And I'm at the peak of my career. So hopefully there's a lot more to do in the near future. So I co-founded a startup called ShopUp. And it mostly works with very small entrepreneurs. And we started off with people who were starting businesses online. A very good example from, if you guys know, from India, there's a company called Misho, which enables homemakers to sell things online without having to stock inventory. So when we started out like that. But right now we offer a lot of other services like logistics and procurement and training for lead generation. And one of the key pieces of our contribution to these entrepreneurs were their ability to borrow from banks. Because, like when your margins are not that high and you're starting off with capital that's very small, for growth, you would need financing. So that's a very crucial role that we played. And I'm very proud of a lot of entrepreneurs who have grown phenomenally with the financing that they have gotten from us.
Ms. Sarwar, I have a question. Where does the financing for ShopUp come from?
So that's the interesting part, that we have actually had the good fortune of having been funded by both donor organizations such as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and UKAID. And in recent times, we have also received financing from Sequoia and Omidyar, because we were tackling a big problem, and like as Miss as speaker just before me said, that sometimes you have to solve problems. And the way I see it, when I was in my second year of university, I read a very powerful line, and it was called, it said that fortune is at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you really look into things, then every business, the purpose of every business is to solve a problem. Because unless you are solving a problem, it is very difficult to make people pay money, right? And in a poor country, in a developing country, that's even more difficult. So unless you solve a real problem that has real impact and that actually improves the life of people, you don't really get to build a very scalable or very profitable or very enduring business. Sure, you could do a small boutique, but if you actually want to do something that has scale, then you would have to create impact, because the majority of the population.
And how many entrepreneurs' lives do you think ShopUp has touched? So,
in terms of user base, we have around over 500,000 users, and so off the top of my head, I have seen some remarkable cases, because I have been involved from the very early stage of the company. And there is this particular girl I'm very proud of, and she was the first client of ShopUp. And I have had the good fortune of seeing her journey over the past 5 years. And, she was a girl child, she was an only child. And when I met her parents, they were always very anxious because they did not have a son. And they were very anxious as to what was going to happen to them once the girl got married. So fortunately, even before the girl got married, she started her own venture online. And then we were supporting her. And today she has bought a car for her parents and a flat for her parents. You know, in Dhaka city, that's a pretty big deal. And 2 years back, I met her father, and her father was thanking me because, of course, he thinks that have been possible for before Shop Up came in. But I personally feel that, you know, we are just an enabler in the ecosystem. And if given the right set of opportunities, people especially at the bottom of pyramid who are not used to privilege and who are used to struggling, they make their way up if you just give them the right opportunities and the right environment. So yeah, so I have seen some remarkable cases, and this is just one example that I lay out in front of you.
Very, very uplifting, very uplifting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go to Mr. Sanjay Dorji. Let's hear about gross national happiness.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. And now, unlike my other colleagues who has been involved in, starting up enterprises and, experiencing social innovation at first hand, the organization I work for, the Bhutan Chamber of Commerce, we do not actually engage ourselves in, starting enterprises or, introducing any kind of social innovation by ourselves. But as the apex body of the private sector of Bhutan, we engage a lot in a lot of social entrepreneurs, and we also, the core mandate of the Bhutan Chamber of Commerce is also to proactively, inspire economic development growth in the country by promoting a dynamic and a very competitive business environment within the country. We also engage ourselves in advocating a lot for vibrant business sectors that promote sustainable economic development through promotion of trade, investment, and by facilitating competitiveness and growth for investment, productivity, so on and so forth. We also mandated primarily to safeguard the overall rights and benefits of members, because we are a membership-based organization, and we also provide leadership and quality services to foster an enabling business environment within the country. Now, very related to social entrepreneurship, one of our core mandates is to facilitate entrepreneurship, whether it's social entrepreneurship or the conventional entrepreneurs, through human resource development, so on and so forth within the private sector of Bhutan. Now, my own understanding when it comes to social innovation is essentially social innovations are any new ideas, I feel, that actually bring about positive changes within the societal structure, that meets social needs, that create social relationships and make new collaborations. I guess, as stated by the earlier colleagues, social innovation can come in the form of products or services, essentially to meet the unresolved challenges that are there in the society. Now, today, I think everyone would agree that social innovations are urgently needed as we all confront complex social problems such as climate change, poverty, income inequalities, rural-urban migration, healthcare issues, poverty, so on and so forth, you name it. There are so many issues that we need to actually confront. Now, if we look at the social innovation literature, there are so many debates about how whether a social innovation can actually come in the form of a product, or whether the product should remain, because it's market-based, it should not be mixed together with social innovation. But I think for today's deliberation, that may not be important. Social innovation, I feel, had mainly come about as a very important, as a buzzword for today in the business world. Primarily, I feel it's because of the disgruntlement that's there within the so-called for-profit enterprises.
Okay.
Now, with the power of the media, the social media, and all, I believe that the consumers have become very powerful. They make the businesses hear that the way they conduct business should be more ethical. They should be more accountable. So I believe that social innovations primarily now involves prevailing business model of maximizing short-term profits for shareholders on its head and returning to the ways of a new way of operating businesses by being more rooted in the physical communities where there is greater, accountability. They look at, I think businesses has come to realize that they should look at their role as being a part of the community and the impact they had on the society to be integral part in how they do business. For Bhutan, I feel that the best example I can share in the name of social innovation is the gross national happiness development approach that we had embarked on. As our moderator had asked me to share the Bhutan's GNH experience, I would like to share that as an example of social innovation. Well, me as a Bhutanese, I could be biased, but
Mr. Dorji, can you just briefly describe how you measure happiness, and then we'll move on to others, because we need to give time to others also.
Sure. I'll just try and wrap it up in a nutshell. Now, why the gross national happiness has come in as, from my side, as an example of social innovation is because across the world today, if we look, indicators are focused largely on the market transactions covering trade, monetary exchange rates, stock market, growth, so on and so forth. These dominant and conventional indicators are generally related to gross domestic product only, reflecting quantity of physical output of a society. Now, GDP, along with the host of the supporting indicators, is widely biased towards increased production and consumption only, regardless of the necessity or the desirability of such outputs at the expense of other more holistic criteria that are there. So even though countries are called developed because their GDPs are so high, much of the rising prosperity has failed to provide satisfaction and subjective well-being, especially in the industrialized, wealthy countries where happiness level had actually stagnated. And as on the contrary, there are rising income inequalities, there are natural disasters, there are poverty, so many social issues that have come about. So in order to counter all these issues, the government of Bhutan had actually introduced the gross national happiness as a development approach with the aim to sort of contain these issues starting from the planning process itself and not wait till these issues have actually come up and where targeted interventions has to be done.
That's a very important point. Let's come back to that after we give other panelists also an opportunity. We'll come back to measurement of these happiness stuff later.
Sure.
So let's hear from Dr. Khin, the Myanmar experience.
Thank you, Mr. Chitra, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm from the Republic of the Union of Myanmar, and I'm working at the Office of Central Transformation Unit, and I'm participating in developing the National Innovation Policy of Myanmar. So I'm thinking this is a great opportunity for me to learn the experience of other countries. Yes, thank you for that. In my point of view, innovation is an important key to the economic and social development of the country, and also the driver of the growth. Here, there is a question, what is innovation? I would like to refer the definitions of Nobel Prize winning economics Edmund Phillips. He describes innovation as a new method or new product that becomes a new practice somewhere in the world. The inclusions of new practice rightly draws attention to the practical applications of which deliver the true impact of the innovation. But nowadays, the innovations which reflect the needs of the societies are encouraging. The world is engaging with so many social challenges that are leading to the inequality and stability and environmental issue or something like that in the society. So social innovations is a response to these challenges. The extent of social innovations is certainly not new, but social innovations is a self-aware field, and the phenomena recognized and then taken seriously by policymakers are certainly new, maybe. So, for social innovations, there are many core and common elements, such as meets social need, novelty, effective, mutualism, etc. Among them, in my point of view, to meet a social need along with the co-design and co-production with all stakeholders is the most important features of the social innovation. For the examples of the social innovations in Myanmar, I would like to point out how the creations of non-formal education programs, named the scholarships for street kids in Myanmar, because street children in Myanmar have been a long-term concern, especially in cities like Yangon and Mandalay, the biggest cities of Myanmar, for many reasons, either due to domestic abuse and abandonment or to support their families financially. These children leave their homes and end up surviving day to day, which no fixed shelter or supportive guardian or parental figures. Scholarships for street kids has an initiative in 2007 to support education for children to those children.
Great.
Yeah, so this program gives the street kids not only literacy and vocational trainings, but also helps them with their behavior changes as they are mentally affected. They sometimes do discussions with the parents and sometimes extend parents training programs also. Sometimes they invite the proposals of local community how to do their current challenges regarding the education of the street children or children labor, something like that. So I think that kinds of programs are great, and this program meets the local needs, and it's impressive, great, and so we need to encourage such kind of social innovation. So I would like to point out one of the examples of social innovations in Myanmar.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Seems like a pretty significant initiative. Thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Bisht.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator, and thanks a lot for having me here today. I come from Nepal, and I led this company called Young Innovation. So we started the company back in 2007, and we are a technology company providing technology solutions to a lot of actors nationally and international. We have had this experience of working with over 15 governments in 15 different countries, and also work with a lot of national and international actors. Right. So what makes us different is like we are in the cater to the development sector, which means we try to understand how can technology help good governments achieve good governance. How can technology help development sectors address the same problem in a different route. So we are more of on a tech for development kind of thing, right? So in terms of our thematic areas, we have built technologies, products, and services in areas like, fiscal transparency, accountability, gender-based violence. Yes, we have worked with the National Women Commission of the Government of Nepal to develop, to tackle the issues of gender-based violence, the case management system, something like 911 in the US kind of model.
Mr. Bisht, maybe what you should do is switch off the video. It looks like there's a bandwidth problem.
I have to relate my work. It is like, we help those specific areas.
Mr. Bisht, maybe you should switch off the video.
Sure, I think.
Just switch off the video and just keep the audio on because you're breaking up. Yeah, please continue.
Sorry about that. So, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's much better now.
So when I talk about social innovation related work that we've been doing, I think it's more about inducing the practice of data and technology using evidence-based approaches in conventional development sector. Like, as I gave this example of how can we take leverage of the data and underlying technology to better address the issue of gender violence. There are actors on the ground, there are or within the bureaucracy, but we have helped them achieve that. At the same time, I think one of the things that we are really proud of is like in most of our work, we try to build an ecosystem of civic tech entrepreneurs, who can then sustainably deliver it to the government agencies and the development agencies. Now, talking specifically about social innovation, what I always believe is the word sounds very, very heavy. And a lot of times, for me, having worked with the private sector most of my times, like I talk about social innovation, people get, oh my God, this is too heavy for me. But I think we need to kind of demystify the term social innovation itself by saying that we are not asking for a bigger thing. What we're doing is like making small incremental changes that we have seen work in other areas. And especially for somebody like us who work on the tech space, it's like, can we embrace the data-driven and technology-driven approaches that the private sectors and the financial sectors have already cracked since ages? They've been doing it for past 50 years. Now, how about using the similar kind of, data-driven approaches in our financial sector, in entrepreneurship? And I think this is how we need to demystify the social innovation side. And the other aspect is, and I think Venkatesh has already touched upon that, is about sustainability. With donor-funded projects and development-funded projects, it's really, really easy to start innovation. And the project funds run out in 4 years, and there goes down your innovation. We have started this. Am I muted? Yep.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I think this is where we need to think about social innovation. And the other thing is, like, most of the time what we've seen, including our work, is you can better address a social innovation issue if you can personally, or your community can connect to the problem that you're trying to solve. I can better connect to the problem that my mom is facing. So if I try to address something, that is when I'm most likely to solve that particular issue, right? So I think we have to.
Mr. Bish will come back to you.
Yeah, sure.
And I do have questions about how do you use technology for social innovation. So I will come back and have that conversation later. Let's now go to Mr. Abhay Vikram. He combines from Sri Lanka. He combines entrepreneurship, social impact with entertainment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shukla. It's a delight to be in this panel. First of all, the social innovation, I would say, has to fulfill certain 3 E's, what I call the social empowerment, economic enrichment, and enhancement of the quality of the environment. So we looked at very clearly in these 3 E's, and in order to kind of bring the emergence of the social entrepreneurship and impact investing, what I found is that we need to work on a AAA program, and in order to reach more people in more places more often, and I would say this AAA is creating availability, accessibility, and affordability, particularly for private equity, for entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. So we created a first of its kind initiative in Sri Lanka, probably in Asia, what we call Shark Tanks and Dragon's Den, called Atpaura, which is a reality show for private equity for social entrepreneurs. Why we call Atpaura is a name called Wall of Tuskers. We don't want the investors to become brutal investors like dragons or sharks. We want them to be very passionate, committed tuskers who will create a wall to protect the little ones in the jungle. So that's the kind of thinking that we brought in. We brought in the first time access to private equity for micro, small and medium level social entrepreneurs in the country. And we created a program where over 5 million viewers were watching this program every once a week on Sundays. And we reach about nearly 6 million viewers across the country. Thereby, we created a first time awareness about what is social entrepreneurship, what is it to be a social entrepreneur in the country. And in the same time, we brought in some of the brutal Sri Lankan big businessmen, entrepreneurs to become passionate impact investors. We got 20 of them to give their private equity to invest in social entrepreneurs as a commitment to the society. And so we brought the platform for linking the social entrepreneurs to impact investors. And this program, we have completed 2 seasons and in the last 2 years. And we have become #1 business program in the country. And over nearly 200 social entrepreneurs have been invested with not debt, but private equity. And first time we brought this dynamism to Sri Lankan entrepreneurs. At the moment, we are the only platform in the country that create access to private equity for micro, small and medium level. So what we want to bring was to bring this dynamism of the economic empowerment and social enrichment and environmental quality enhancement. And also what we want to do is to really create opportunity for more people in more places, more often, to have access to private equity. With this TV reality show, we have embarked on a number of other initiatives in partnership with UNDP and the PwC Pricewaterhouse in order to really make sure that this platform not only available through TV, but made physically available to more people in more places. Now, this platform we take across to other parts of the country physically so that, entrepreneurs in different shapes and sizes, with the young and old, men and women, the students, all have the opportunity because particularly at the startup level, you cannot have bank debt and the microfinance debt, which is a high price to any startup. So you need to have a passionate investor putting equity, and that is the dynamism we brought through this program. And we have revolutionized, in fact, we have called this program Silent Revolution, Silent Economic Revolution through this Atpaura. And again, this is not like a brutal investment program, but this is a commitment to empower and enhance, enrich people, more people in more places. So that's the reason that we have named it called Atpaura, which is meaning the wall of tuskers. The tuskers in the jungle create a wall when they have little ones. So we have told our investors, you can't be brutal like sharks or dragons, but you need to be passionate, having patient capital to invest in the social entrepreneurs. So now I think the whole country knows what is social enterprise, how to become a social entrepreneur. In the same time, there are more and more people are lining up to become impact investors. So this is a kind of, as I said, entrepreneur revolution on the area of social entrepreneurship we have brought in. And through this, we have brought this social innovation that is needed to create access to private equity for more people in more places more often.
That's amazing. That's amazing example of a creative kind of impact. Mr. Abhay Vikram, before it gets too late, you should franchise it and license it to other countries, because this is something that can easily spread to a lot of different countries. This is amazing.
We have franchised it and licensed it, and I think it is franchised in Sri Lanka and also internationally now on that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Very, very creative. Very, very interesting. Let's hear from the last speaker, Mr. Tira.
Thank you, Mr. Shukla, and I'm very glad to be here. First of all, myself, I'm a co-founder of Arin Care. In a nutshell, Care is a healthcare technology startup based in Thailand. I would describe Care as a for-profit startup. We are a startup, right? And we are making profit with a social mission. And our mission is clear, it's bridging the gap between in healthcare accessibility. And I experienced this firsthand. In Thailand, we have a big issue with healthcare. Basically, we don't have enough doctors. For 70 million people in Thailand, we have only 50,000 doctors taking care of the whole country, right? So with that, it created a big problem. It's create a big gap in the middle. For those lower and middle class, they have to go to public hospitals, for example. And, they have to wait, go at 5 a.m., see doctors at noon. By the time they get their medicines and go home, it's 5 in the evening. They spend 12 hours there. That's the normal public hospital in Thailand. On the other hand, you can pay top dollars, around 300% more expensive, and go to a private hospital. And when you go there, you feel this is a 5-star hotel, right? So this is a big gap of inequality issues in healthcare. In Thailand, that's when myself and my team, we came up, we get together and we think about how can we make healthcare more accessible and more equally distributed to everyone. And we found that there's another interesting group that has been left out of the equation completely, which are the local pharmacists, the local doctors, those volunteer doctors, right? That that they're not in the hospital, but they're dispersing all around the country. And they're doing their work, because they have the soul of the caretaker. They want to help people, so they abandon those luxurious comfortable life in the cities, and they go everywhere around the country to help treating people, right? But the big problem when we tried to work with them was that they are lacquer when it comes to technologies. They didn't have the resources, the funding, or the knowledge about technologies, right? So most of them still doing everything by hands and by themselves. No tools to help. So that's when we thought that this is something that we wanted to do. We took it as our mission to help empowering these local pharmacists. So we create a software and also a platform that allow them to perform their daily operations, almost everything, and connect to everything that they need, and let them use it for free. And for the past 5 years, none of them, paid us even a single dollars to be on the platform and use all these top tier technologies. At the moment, we have more than 4,000 pharmacists in 2,000 locations all over Thailand. Every month, we help them fill more than 600,000 prescriptions. And all of this, it was unprecedented before. Before us, they have done all of this by hands. And we help creating a lot of values, a lot of efficiencies, and also economic values as well. So that's basically what we have been doing. And to sum up, I would share this is something that I talk to a lot with my teams also, about being a social enterprise and social innovation, right? And we consider ourselves quite fortunate, to being around in this era. This time of, in terms of year, right? We don't have to divide anymore. Basically, if you are doing something, you're doing business, and you're not doing something good for the society, you cannot do it.
Right.
People are so concerned, right? You go to, especially those young generations. If they're doing something unethical, not good for the society, right? They would reject you right away. Right. So right now, I think as we are progressing into the future, I believe that the line between being a business and a social enterprise, it will become blurry. There will be no more social enterprise. It will be enterprise with social missions. That's our take.
That's an interesting perspective. We are running out of time. So what I'll do is I'll ask some specific question to specific individuals. We thought that we'll have a general conversation, but looks like we have only about 10 minutes to go. So let's see how many questions I can go through. So let's ask Ms. Nandi. Are you around? Can you hear me, Ms. Nandi? Neera? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for you. Have you faced any challenges in terms of acceptance of a new idea or doing things in a different way? What kind of pushback do you get, and how do you get over that?
I think, yes, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, our ambition is very large, and sometimes we don't think about the hurdles or think about the challenges as much. And I think that often it's about risk, right? So I think entrepreneurs and innovators are willing to take risk, whether it's compromising their own ways of living or their ideals. I think sometimes that is misaligned, frankly, with when you're sitting in front of a funder and investor. But I think what often helps to overcome this is, in fact, that passion, the storytelling, the change and the world that each of us want to see. I find that examples of how our idea really will solve a problem and create change can often be very convincing. And so a lot of our work, and it's probably similar to the program in Sri Lanka, is really helping entrepreneurs tell their story, right? And with that story needs to come an understanding of the model, an understanding of how to finance it, and also an understanding of what that impact is. But how do you do that in a very short amount of time, I think is one of the biggest challenges. So what we've seen caught on in incubators and accelerators was helping, what's your pitch? What's your elevator pitch? And a lot of being able to do that, and being able to do that with entrepreneurs from the community, women entrepreneurs to be able to do this. I feel that allowing and building that capacity will just grow this opportunity and space for people.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. My next question is to Ms. Sarwar. How do you measure and assess your impact of a social venture like this? How do you measure it? You're on mute.
So for us, we look very closely at the average income per entrepreneur that's generated on our platform.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, for you, it's easy to measure because the amount of business.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So the question is next for Mr. Abhay Vikram. You have been able to create this network for fundraising. What advice would you give to people in other countries? How do you create this network of social investors?
I think again, we need to tell the story about the what I told very clearly too. I invited about group of high net worth individuals, and I told them you deal with millions and trillions and billions, but your life is dealt in 10s, 20s, and 30s, and 40s, and 50s, and 60s, and 70s. When you come to 70, 60, your trillions will not match your tens. So there is opportunity for you to park your trillions into tens by investing on social entrepreneurs for impact. So I think that's where I really created a message, a story to them, so that the people who deal in trillions and billions and millions, make sure that your tens in age will match that, and thereby they were maybe. That's why I was able to bring a brutal investor group of people, 20, to become passionate impact investors. I was able to transform them and kind of evangelize to them, and that's the kind of thing that really taken on. And we was able to showcase the impact the social entrepreneurs make on the electronic media, and the more passion got involved into the more potential investors. When they saw that the social entrepreneurs, the scalability, the impact, and the enrichment that they are creating, and the more and more people were willing to come on board.
Great. Thank you. So next question is from Mr. Bisht. So tell us to see how technology could be used. You had some points to say about using data, being data driven. So tell us to see how a small social venture, how would they be data driven? How would they use technology given the limited resources that they have?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, because a lot of time there is a misconception that, when it comes to technology and data, you need to buy software, you need to, invest a lot in resources. It's not that case. I think from day one, if people can see that, okay, in my startup, these are the key metrics that I want to measure, right? And I need to have an aptitude to collect that data to see if I meet on my metrics or not. And that is a very good start. And then you can, make use of simple tools like even like spreadsheet and others, and build on that. And one thing that I would really encourage everyone is like, when it is about you.
Mr. Bisht, please switch off your video again. You were making an interesting point. We want to hear that. So please switch off your video and just turn the audio on.
I think we've lost him.
He's lost it. Yes. Okay. Well, let's move on. Mr. Tira, you are in a for-profit venture. How do you balance your profit goals with your social goals?
Right. This is something that how we can balance is that for us, we have to grow that hands in hands. What we always ask ourselves is how we can align the profit and also the social impact. Because, many people asking, look at taking the view from social perspective too. And we always emphasize that, the more we grow, the more scale that we grow more, the more impact we can contribute back to the society. This goes back to the day one, right? The first question, why are we doing this? If our mission, our intention is clear, that we are doing this for the social mission, and they can see the activities, how we can get bigger. They can see that we can impact more and more. There are more recipients. So I think the key that we can balance the both of them is to align them together and get all the stakeholders to understand. If the stakeholders see that, we are making more incomes, right? And they can see our efforts being double down to our mission, right? I think they're okay with that. And most people in these days, they're okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think the key is to, the first question, align the profit and the impact you're making to be the same goal. And that will be clear.
Great. My next question is to Dr. Kin. You talked a lot about government initiatives. You have any ideas on how do you encourage the younger generation to take up entrepreneurship?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. To stimulate the innovation idea of the youngster are very important. Very important to improve the innovation capacity of the country. To encourage the youngster for innovation, I think the most important thing is to change the eco education system, and in the basic, the was like this. Sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll just move on. So my last question is to Mr. Dorji. Mr. Dorji, we are running short of time, so I'll give you only 2 minutes, and we just want to hear from you. What are the elements of gross national happiness? You talked about is more than the GDP. Other than GDP, what other things that you measure?
So, the GNH framework is primarily made up of 9 domains. So these 9 domains has all the conventional parameters that are used to frame a development approach by almost all the countries in the world. But the GNH framework, additionally, it contains innovative parameters that are never used before by any country in the world. And those parameters, in addition to the conventional parameters like health, education, good governance, ecological diversity, living standards. The innovative domains added are things like time use, culture, psychological well-being, and the other one was community vitality. So these are the innovative parameters that were actually added in the development framework to make the GNH approach more holistic and comprehensive.
Great. Well, I think we are out of time here. I'm getting message that I need to wrap it up. So I just want to say that this was an exceptional session. I really thank all the panelists. I learned a lot, and hopefully we will continue to communicate through the email. But I think it was wonderful that you shared your perspective, and hopefully everybody who listened is benefited and enriched, and we all learned from each other also. So thank you all for being here, and really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.